There are two different sets of steps. I want you guys to write down what's in blue right now. Don't worry about writing down what's in purple. We're going to talk about it, but this is the set of steps that I want you to know. Okay, so step 1, cross simplify. We're going to talk about what that is in just a second. Step 2, multiply straight across. And step 3, simplify if possible. Going through this example here, take a second and write this one down if you haven't yet. So this says 5/6 times 2/3. Remember, our dot also means multiplication, and if you see a little cross like that, that's multiplication as well. So we all know what the word simplify means. So if I had the fraction 3/6, that would simplify to 1/2. Okay, we practiced a lot of that yesterday. What it means to cross simplify is you're going to look at your diagonals and see if you can simplify those as well. For example, if I look at 5/3, so pretend that's a fraction, 5/3, could you simplify that? No, you couldn't. There's nothing you could divide 5 and 3 by. So let's look at the other way. If I look at 2/6, could you simplify that as a fraction? If I wrote the fraction 2/6 up here, what could we divide 2 and 6 by? 2. So we're going to divide both of these by 2, and we get 1/3. Now what this means is that we're going to replace this 2, which is this 2 right here, with a 1. So 2 goes into 2 once, and then the 2 goes into the 6 3 times. So we're going to replace those. All we did was pretend that 2/6 was a fraction, and we simplified it down to 1/3. The reason we do this is because it makes it easier for us when we're done. We don't have to simplify anymore. And I'm going to show you a really good example of this down here in a few minutes. But once you do your cross simplifying, all you do is go to step 2, and I'm going to rewrite this. So we now have 5/3 times 1/3. And it says multiply straight across, which means we're going to multiply our numerators. So 5 times 1 is 5, and we multiply our denominators. 3 times 3 is 9. So our answer right now is 5/9. And if you can simplify this, then you need to do so. If you've cross-reduced and you've done everything you can for cross-reducing here, then you're not going to have to do step 3. It's already going to be simplified. Okay, I don't expect you to understand this right now. I know this is brand new, but just follow along with me. We're going to do a bunch together on the next page. I'm going to quickly show you these steps right here. I know it looks shorter, but really in the long run, it's not that much shorter. Okay, you can multiply straight across. So I took the same problem here, and instead of doing the cross simplifying, you can just multiply straight across right away, and you get 10/18, and then you have to simplify at the end. Okay, so we can divide both of these by 2. And notice we still end up with our answer that we got down here, which is 5/9. Okay, I know this looks easier, but let me show you why it's not. Okay, so I have an example down here, and just watch this. You don't have to write this down. Okay, I'm going to do this the way that we just ended on. So I'm going to multiply first, and then I'm going to simplify at the end. So if I multiply, this already starts off as way more work. So I'm going to cheat and use my calculator here. And 27 times 63 is 1,701. And then 45 times 72 is 3,240. Okay, so keep this in mind a second. Again, I'm cheating again using my calculator. This actually simplifies all the way down to 21/40. Okay, now my guess is most of you would never want to simplify a fraction this big. Okay, looking at 1,701, I wouldn't even know where to tell you to begin on what we can divide that by, except for using your divisibility rules. Okay, they're both divisible by 3, but it's really hard to see that when you have such big numbers. So now let me show you, this is the way again that I want you to learn how to do this, and I know it's new, but just kind of follow along with me, is we need to cross simplify. So if I look at 27 over 72, okay, what number can go into 27 and 72? 9 can. How many times does 9 go into 27? 3 times. How many times does 9 go into 72? 8 times. Okay, so all I did was take the fraction 27 over 72, and I divided both of them by 9, and I got 3/8. So I replaced the 27 with the 3, and I replaced the 72 with the 8. That's all I did, because these are equivalent, which means I can replace both of them, and I'm really still multiplying by the same thing. So let's look the other way. If I look at 63 over 45, so let me just write it down here, 63 over 45. Again, they're both divisible by 9, and we're left with 7 over 5, which means the 63 is going to become a 7, and the 45 is going to become a 5, and now let's multiply across. 3 times 7 is 21, 5 times 8 is 40. So in the long run, this way is going to go a lot faster, especially when you're working with big numbers. We're going to end up with the same thing, okay, but I really want you guys to try hard to understand this way. There's one more thing I want to talk about before we move on and do some together. And again, don't worry about writing this down. Let me just explain. Okay, so if I have this fraction here, which I think is the same one we did on the previous page, but that's okay. The reason that you can cross simplify is, what property do we know about multiplication? Multiplication and addition are both what property? Commutative, which means that we can switch these numbers and still have the same answer. 2 times 3 is the same thing, I'm going to actually erase these, is the same thing as 3 times 2, right? They're both 6. So if I actually flip these, we can easily see that this becomes 1 or 1 over 1, whichever way you want to see it. And then we can simplify 2/4 into 1/2, okay? So all we really did is I flip-flopped these, but it's the same thing as just looking at them diagonally. Okay, if I can look at these diagonally and cross-reduce them in my head, this is going to go way faster for you. If you actually need to erase and flip, then do so. So let's go ahead and do some together. Okay, so do these in your notebook as I do them on the board. I'm going to take a second and write this one down for an example. So 3/4 times 1/6. And I put the steps up here, so in case you didn't get them all written down, they're up here. Cross simplify, multiply straight across, simplify if possible. Okay, so in this case, we would look at the 3 and the 6, and we would look at the 1 and the 4. And something you might want to do in your notebook, since you don't have highlighters, is to actually circle them. Okay, so if I look at the fraction 3 over 6, we're pretending that's a fraction, 3 over 6. What can I divide 3 and 6 by? 3. So if we divide both of these by 3, 3 divided by 3 is 1, 6 divided by 3 is 2. So the fraction 3 over 6 becomes 1/2. Okay, 3 goes into itself once, that's where the 1 comes from, and then the 3 goes into the 6 2 times. So let's look at this one just in case. We have the fraction 1/4. Can you simplify 1/4? No. So all we're going to do is multiply straight across. So what we have left in our numerators is 1 times 1, which is 1. and then 4 times 2, which is 8. Okay, again, if you did this the second way and just multiplied before you cross-simplified, we would get 3 over 24, and then we'd have to simplify when we were done, and we still get 1/8. Okay, but really focus on this way that I'm teaching you right here, where you look at the diagonals. All right, let's look at this one up here. I'm going to go back to highlighter just because it's easier to see, but go ahead and write this next one down as an example. So let's start by looking at the 1 and the 5. If you had the fraction 1/5, would you simplify that? No. If you had the fraction 3/4, could you simplify that? No again. So we don't have to do step 1 here. We jump right on down to step 2 and we multiply straight across. 1 times 3 is 3. 4 times 5 is 20. And as long as you did all the simplifying, you're not going to have to simplify your answer at the end. Take a second and write down this next one. So this one says 3/10 times 5/6. So let's start with a 3 and the 6. Could we simplify the fraction 3 over 6? Yeah, it equals 1/2. Okay, 3 goes into 3 once. 3 goes into 6 twice. The next one, 5 and 10, if we had the fraction 5 over 10, same thing. If we had 10 pieces of pizza and we ate 5 of them, we ate half of the pizza. 5 goes into 5 once. 5 goes into 10 twice. Now we can multiply straight across. 1 times 1 is 1, and then we have 2 times 2 in our denominators, which is 4. So that one is 1/4. Again, guys, if you're still confused, that's okay. Sometimes this takes a little while to kind of catch on. It's just one of those things that's going to click for you. I threw it on the board. You could take good notes on it. Alright, so I'm going to go through these pretty quickly. If you still have questions about them, go ahead and just kind of hang on to them and we can talk about them when I get back. You could also multiply the fraction regularly. Notice that 4 over 6 can be reduced to 2/3. Okay, when this happens, when they give you one like this, then you're going to have to simplify at the end. So divide both of these by 2, and we get 1/3. And we'll talk more about this when I get back. But we could simplify this first, and then cross simplify, and then we'd end up with 1/3. But we'll talk more about that later.